Have you ever felt different, like the world doesn't quite see you the way you know you should be seen? Have you ever found yourself ignored, dismissed, or doubted by those who wield power and influence? What if I told you that all of that was never a mistake? What if those moments when you felt alone or overlooked were precisely the ones that set you on the path to something much greater than you could ever imagine? I want to tell you the story of how those very people, the ones who once looked past you, are now fighting over a chance to stand beside you. Because in a world that's built on power, wealth, and status, something rare has happened. And now the very people who once didn't even see you are desperate to align with you. Why? Because they recognize what you may not yet fully understand. You are rare, and rarity is power. They once thought you would fall in line. They believed they could buy your attention, control your future. But what they don't realize is that you were never meant to fit into their world. Your story is not about playing their game, it's about creating a new one. In this moment, the tables have turned. They are scrambling, bidding, and trying to get a seat at your table, but you, the one they overlooked, hold the power. And the best part, the power to decide who gets a seat by your side. The awakening. There comes a point in every chosen one's life when the fog begins to clear. It's not immediate, it doesn't happen overnight, but suddenly you realize something profound. You are different, and the world does not operate on the rules you once believed to be true. When I first realized my own power, I couldn't understand why it had taken me so long to see it. Growing up, I was just like any other person, unnoticed, overlooked, and often dismissed by those I thought were important. I remember the times when my opinions were disregarded, when I was passed over for opportunities simply because I didn't fit into the molds that society had created for people like me. For years, I followed the rules, chasing what everyone else thought was important: success, approval, fitting in. But something changed, a shift inside me that I couldn't ignore. It started with a small voice, a whisper deep within that told me, "You are not like the others." I began to notice patterns in how people treated me. The more I pushed forward, the more resistance I faced, and yet the stronger I became. It was almost as if the universe was testing me, making sure that I wouldn't give in to the pressure, that I wouldn't be crushed by their expectations. The awakening is different for everyone, but it's always marked by one thing. You stop seeking validation from the outside world and start listening to your inner voice. You realize that what you carry, the power you possess, is not something anyone can give or take away. It is born within you. And from that moment forward, you no longer need anyone's permission to rise. You know you are meant for something more. The silent observers. As you begin to awaken to your own power, something strange happens. People start noticing you. At first, it's subtle, a lingering glance here, a whisper there, but slowly it grows. The ones who once dismissed you now watch your every move with intense curiosity. They start analyzing you, trying to figure out who you are, why you are different. I remember a time when I felt this shift, when I realized that the very people who once ignored me were now watching me, talking about me behind closed doors. They didn't understand me, but they were fascinated by me. It's not something that happens immediately, but over time, you begin to feel the shift in the energy around you. People who once seemed untouchable, unreachable, begin to seek you out. They send representatives, they make inquiries, and suddenly, the circles you thought were beyond your reach start opening up. They want to know how you did it. How did you rise? What makes you different? It's the same story every time. The elite begin to take notice of someone who doesn't fit their mold. They can't understand your rise. They can't figure out how you seem to exist outside of their influence. They whisper about you in private meetings, analyzing your every move, trying to pinpoint your secret. What they don't realize is that the very thing that makes you different is the one thing they can never control: your authenticity. They see the power in your presence, the way you move through life effortlessly, and they want it. But the more they watch, the more they realize that they can't replicate what you have. It's not something they can buy or manipulate. And that's when the desperation begins to set in. The bidding war. Now the game begins. As your presence becomes undeniable, the offers start coming in. The elites who once ignored you now fight for a seat at your table. At first, it's subtle. They make their moves carefully, trying to figure out how they can offer you something that would make you want to align with them. The promises are grand: wealth, power, influence, access to exclusive circles. I remember the first offer I received. It was a well-crafted invitation, dressed in the language of opportunity, as if they were doing me a favor. But deep down, I knew it wasn't a favor. It was a calculated move, a way for them to claim proximity to my power. They wanted to be seen with me, to claim me as their ally, to attach themselves to my rise. But they miscalculated. What they didn't understand was that I didn't need them. I had already discovered the most valuable truth. My power was mine alone. They thought I would be eager to accept their offers, desperate for the resources they could provide. But I wasn't. In fact, I refused, not out of pride, but out of clarity. I realized that what they were offering wasn't truly for me, it was for them. They were trying to control me, to use me for their own gain. And as the days went by, the offers kept coming, bigger and more extravagant each time. The game was on. They had underestimated me, and now they were scrambling to outdo each other. But the truth was clear to me: I wasn't in their game. I was the one they were fighting for, and the more they offered, the more I realized that none of it could ever truly move me. What they didn't understand is that they weren't just fighting to be close to me. They were fighting to own something they could never possess: my soul, my essence, my truth. You are not their game. They thought they understood you. They thought you'd be like everyone else, eager, grateful, predictable, someone who would jump at the chance to be seen, to be accepted, to finally be chosen by them. But you didn't move the way they expected. You didn't flinch. You didn't grab the bait. And that shook them. See, in their world, everyone has a price, a title, a role to play in a hierarchy they designed. They've spent generations perfecting their system, one built on manipulation, flattery, and control. They know how to offer just enough to make people compromise. They know how to praise you just enough to make you crave their approval. They've trained people to chase prestige like starving wolves. But then there was you. I remember the first time I said no to someone everyone else bowed to. Not just any person, someone powerful, influential, the kind whose name alone made doors fly open. They invited me to a private gathering, sent a black car, flattered me with talk of legacy and legacy building. It sounded perfect on the surface, but something felt off, like a golden leash. So I politely declined, not with drama, just with stillness, and that silence. It was louder than any acceptance ever could have been. They didn't know what to do with it. You weren't following the script. That's when I realized I'm not in their game, and neither are you. You were never created to fit into their carefully crafted structure. You are the anomaly that disrupts their blueprint. They can't slot you into influencer, ally, tool, or even threat, because you don't play those roles. You're not performing, you're not positioning, you're just being authentically, powerfully, and without apology. And in a world that thrives on control, that makes you dangerous. Their frustration grows. At first, they tried to reason it out. Maybe you were just playing hard to get. Maybe you didn't understand the value of their offer. Maybe you just needed time, but time passed. You didn't come running. You didn't ask for a second chance. You didn't even ask them to explain themselves. And that's when the silence started to turn into panic. Understand this: their frustration isn't just about your refusal. It's about what your refusal represents. When someone like you, self-aware, grounded, spiritually untouchable, says no, it creates ripples in a system built entirely on yes men. It undermines the illusion that they hold all the cards. I've seen it up close. After I turned down that first offer, others began acting differently. They tried harder. They softened their tone. One even confessed that my lack of reaction had unsettled their entire team. They started second-guessing themselves, not because I said anything cruel or clever, but because I didn't chase. I didn't negotiate. I simply moved forward. You want to know what shakes power more than rebellion? Non-engagement. Refusing to give your energy to a game designed to drain you. And when that happens, the mask slips. They start watching you more closely. Every post, every conversation, every move. They send connectors your way, people disguised as friends, collaborators, even spiritual guides. But their questions reveal the truth. They're not curious, they're calculating. Why doesn't this person need us? What are they tapped into that we can't replicate? Why aren't our usual tools working? Because you've unplugged from their grid. You don't move from fear. You don't seek approval. You don't need their protection because you're already covered by something higher, something unseen, something they can't access no matter how many billions they spend. And that's why their frustration festers into desperation. Because you are not just rejecting their offer, you're rewriting the rules they thought were eternal. The invitation you never sought. It happens when they realize you're not coming to them. That's when someone finally steps forward, not a middleman this time, not a strategist. Them, the face, the name, the one who never has to ask. They show up in person, with charm, with poise, with a curated package of admiration and opportunity. The energy is different now, humble, almost reverent, because they've come to a terrifying conclusion. If they don't claim you now, someone else will, or worse, no one will, because you don't need to be claimed at all. I remember that moment in my own life. An elite executive who once ghosted me on a proposal reached out, not just with an apology, but with an offer 3 times bigger than the original, complete with a glowing endorsement, global access, and autonomy written all over the contract. They said all the right things, called me a visionary, told me I had something the world needed, claimed they wanted to partner, not own. But the energy behind it, I felt it, not admiration, urgency, not alignment, self-preservation, because they weren't offering out of generosity. They were extending a lifeline to their relevance. My refusal to engage had cracked their narrative, and they needed to seal the wound. And when I paused, didn't react, didn't jump, they blinked first. That's when it hit me, I was never meant to be invited. Because the chosen ones don't arrive through invitation. We appear, we rise, we align with purpose, not permission. And when they see that they can't sway you, not with praise, not with privilege, not with pressure, that's when the illusion of their power begins to collapse. They come with smiles, but behind the charm is a fear they'll never voice out loud. You're not theirs to mold. You don't belong in their lineage, their legacy, their circle. Because your light wasn't born in their rooms, it was born in fire. It was shaped in silence. It was refined in trials they'll never understand. They thought they were giving you something, but in truth, they were reaching for what only you could offer. And you were never looking for them. You were always becoming you, spiritual awakening. There's a moment in every chosen one's life when everything clicks into place. It's not like an epiphany where the world reveals itself in a blinding flash. It's subtler than that. It's a soft whisper, a gentle unfolding of awareness that you've been living within someone else's story, someone else's script, and it's time to break free. It starts with a realization that there is more to this world than meets the eye. You stop seeing life as a series of events to be endured or managed and start recognizing the deeper forces at play. I remember the first time I felt this. It wasn't some grand ceremony or spiritual retreat. It was a quiet afternoon, a moment when I looked out the window and everything felt different. I wasn't just seeing the world, I was feeling it. I felt the pulse of the earth, the silent energy connecting everything, and in that moment, I realized this was the real power. It wasn't in money, it wasn't in status or titles, it was in being aligned with something far greater than what the world around me could offer. I realized that I had been seeking approval in all the wrong places. The approval I truly needed came from within. I had been searching for answers in the noise, in the crowded rooms, in the flashy promises. But true power, true connection to the divine, it comes from silence, from stillness, from understanding that you are already complete. This awakening changes everything. You stop chasing, you stop needing, you stop fearing. Because when you realize your spiritual essence, when you understand your divine connection to something bigger than this world, you realize no one can take that from you. Not a single person, no matter how powerful or influential they may be, can touch that core of who you are. And when you step into that knowing, the world begins to change around you. You no longer bend. You no longer break. You stand firm. The power you hold isn't in the material, it's in your very soul. And suddenly, you realize that you've been living under a false narrative, that you need to do things the way everyone else does. But now you understand you are part of something greater. The real work begins when you align yourself with this force, when you surrender the need for approval and understand that you have the power to create your own path. Everything else begins to fall into place. The great shift. It's impossible to ignore the changes happening in the world around us. The signs are everywhere. Systems that once seemed untouchable are crumbling. Old structures that seemed unshakable are beginning to fracture. And while others may panic, those of us who have awakened to our true power understand something different. The world is not falling apart, it's falling into place. For the first time, it's becoming clear that everything that has been built on illusion, on manipulation, and on control is being undone. It's like watching a dam break after years of pressure. The walls that once held everything together are weakening, and soon the flood of truth will wash it all away. This shift isn't just political or financial. It's spiritual, it's global, it's personal. The people who once believed they held all the power are now scrambling. They're watching the system they've built begin to crumble and trying to figure out how they can preserve their place in it. But here's the truth. You can't preserve a broken system. You can't hold on to power when the foundation has been exposed as fragile and false. The only thing left to do is rebuild, and not with the same tools they used to build their empire. You are part of the change. The ones who understand that power isn't something you take, it's something you align with. I've felt it personally. I've seen it in my own journey. The more I've stepped into my own truth, the more I've seen the world around me shift. I no longer chase after things that don't align with my purpose. I've stopped trying to fit into a world that wasn't made for me, and as I've stepped into my power, the world has stepped up to meet me. Those who once doubted me now see what I'm capable of. But here's the secret they don't understand. It wasn't them I needed. It wasn't the world I was seeking. The shift began the moment I realized I am the change. This is the great shift, the moment when we begin to recognize our divine power and step into the role we were always meant to play. And it's not just about us. It's about everyone who has felt the weight of the system pushing them down. The ones who have been told they don't belong, the ones who have been overlooked, the ones who have been kept on the fringes. We are rising, and when we rise, the world will rise with us. This shift is not about dominance or competition. It's about awakening to the truth that we are all connected, and that we each hold a piece of the divine puzzle. The elites who once held the keys to the kingdom now find themselves standing at the gates, wondering how they lost control. But it's not a loss, it's liberation. And those of us who have awakened know that we were always meant to be here. This is just the beginning of a new world. And it's a world where we get to decide what role we play in it. Not because we're fighting to win, but because we already have. Conclusion. I want you to understand something. You were never meant to fit into their world. The world that the elites created, the one built on lies, manipulation, and control, was never designed for you. You were never part of their game. You were never supposed to be. You were always meant to be different. And now, as the world shifts around you, it's becoming clear to everyone that you hold the key to something they can never replicate. True power, true alignment, and true freedom. What they never understood, what they failed to see, was that you were never chasing them. You were never looking for a seat at their table. You were building your own. And now, the world is starting to recognize that they are the ones who need you, not the other way around. The moment they realized you couldn't be bought, couldn't be controlled, couldn't be manipulated, they started to scramble. But by then, it was already too late, because you are the chosen one. You are the one who has stepped out of the game. You are the one who doesn't need to play by their rules. And in doing so, you have unlocked the highest level of power, the power of authenticity. So, as they continue to fight for a seat at your table, as they try to claim what they once thought was theirs, remember this: you are not a pawn in their game. You are the game changer. And the more they fight for your attention, the more you rise, undeterred by their schemes, undistracted by their desperation. You are the one who creates the path, the one who sets the course, and in the end, you will be the one standing tall, not because you played their game, but because you created your own. The world is changing, and those of us who have awakened are the ones who will lead it into the future. This is your time. Step into your power. Step into your purpose. The table is yours.